Hey everybody, I'm Andy Wike. Welcome back to another episode of All Pipes Considered. I'm wearing Peterson green today, as appropriate for me to talk about probably the Peterson project that I have been most excited about this year. We've been very hush-hush about this, but it is a 2-pipe release of some really old shapes, originally found in the 1906 catalog, the Pat B and the Pat OB, coming back as the 160th anniversary pipes for Peterson of Dublin. So fortunately, Chris and I had the opportunity to visit Glen and the guys over at Peterson earlier this summer, and we got the opportunity to actually see some of the first bowls going through all of the stages of production in the factory. So let's kick it back over to past me and let's see what this is all about. Hey everybody, I'm here with Glen Whelan, Managing Director of Captain Peterson. Glen?
Good to have you back.
Good to be back, man.
Time to perfection again, the trip.
I know, it's sort of serendipitous how these things work out, but yeah, like Chris and I came to the factory and we were super fortunate to be able to see, once again, a really special pipe going through the very early stages of production. This is something that I've been looking forward to kind of all year long.
Yeah.
And that's the 160th anniversary.
Yeah, we've been really quiet about this release. People expect Pipe of the Year, St. Patrick's Day from us, but this one we've kept top secret until now.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure some folks out there be like, they're probably going to do something.
They're expecting it.
Like, they're going to do something, but I think everyone's going to be really surprised by what we chose.
Yeah. I think given what it is, what it represents, and the fact that it's not just one pipe.
Yeah. So without further ado, we're talking about the Pat shape.
Yes.
So this was one of only a handful of named shapes in the 1906 catalog. So Peterson historically didn't really name a lot of their shapes with actual name designations. There were numbers or various, sort of like alphanumeric.
Yeah.
Like,
just shorthand abbreviated.
Yeah. But, along with like some of the others, this one is very reminiscent of sort of early 20th century pipe design.
Yeah.
So sort of stout, muscular proportions, sort of a short throw shank and stem.
And yeah, it's kind of what Peterson has brought on the bowl side all the way through into today with what we've been doing. It kind of laid the foundations for Peterson.
Okay.
These patent pipes, and I think we've just followed through on that tradition right up to today and what we do.
Sure. And that's really interesting, I wonder what do you think that Pat means in that historical context?
I think you get a lot of speculation when it comes to abbreviated names, but like Irish people are famed for hypercharisms. We love it's a sense of endearment to shorten somebody's name.
That's right.
The only thing that shocks me the most is that we haven't shortened Pat down to P maybe or something like that.
Maybe that's what P stands for.
Yeah,
actually,
exactly. Yeah. But I think without going too much into it, I think it's got to be just an abbreviated form of patent.
Yeah.
It makes the most sense.
Yeah.
I know, we talked earlier about this, and you were saying, there's links to St. Patrick, or I think it's gonna be patent.
Yeah, I would totally agree, and that's an interesting point too, because when we think of patent in relation to Peterson or Captain Peterson, Charles Peterson, typically we're thinking about the system.
Yeah, of course.
And of course, the Pat shapes were never systems.
No.
So even in the 1906 catalog, you see these pipes named as Pats, but they were in a section labeled patent lip pipes, which really is the precursor to the modern classic range.
Yeah, and a range which is hugely important for us because we speak a lot about system,
sure,
especially Peterson and what it is and what it means to Peterson, but not everybody is a system smoker.
Sure.
So the classic range, it's vast now. When we look at today's catalogue, in older catalogues, it used to be just smooth that would be showcased. Now, we look at our pipe portfolio and the numbers are endless in combinations, and most of that is driven by the classic shape chart.
Sure.
An ever-evolving classic shape chart as well.
Exactly. Yeah. So what's also interesting is this is not the first time that Peterson has revived this specific shape or shape class.
No.
So, I remember it as recently as the 2013 antique collection.
Yeah, and I think the antique collection was more more of a tribute to what those pipes would have looked like, whereas what we're doing today is more of a truer representation of what they actually were. They're much stouter and more just basically what they look like in the catalogue.
Okay.
I think that was a kind of, that antique collection was nice, but these to me are much closer to what we're trying to actually represent in this series.
I love that. Yeah, that's super interesting because, you know, a sort of true to form recreation of this archival shape, but executed today, right?
Exactly.
So
yeah.
all, like modern finishing, modern BTA, like all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
It is a historical recreation of this shape, but executed with our modern capabilities. Really.
Yeah. Exactly.
So there's two shapes, really, right?
There's two shapes.
There's two shapes we're talking about here.
I think we can see, like, these two shapes, we have a vent and we have a straight, but you can see how Peterson has evolved from those shapes. They almost are the foundations of everything that's fallen off them. It's like they're top of the family tree.
Yeah.
And you can just see the lineage then throughout the years.
Yeah.
That kind of pays tribute to these two shapes.
Yeah, I mean, we're looking at the Pat to like the 106 kind of thing,
yeah.
right? Like, yeah, I can definitely see how.
And even the bend is like, it screams. Like I just see the XL90 jump off it in some parts.
Totally.
Then I can see the 302 coming off it in some parts. You can see where the inspiration for other shapes came from. Just these two shapes that we're doing. So it definitely laid foundations for Peterson's storied history.
So, you know, when we're talking about, you know, Pipe of the Year or any sort of like special edition release, I know that the inspiration and the origins of that release starts really far back.
Yeah.
And it's a super collaborative process. It involves, you know, guys in the office, you know.
We want as many people's input as possible here. Like the people on the factory floor, they know their job.
Sure.
They're handling pipes every day of the week, so the more of those people we can get involved, the better. This particular idea, though, is an idea that Josh Burgess has been pestering us to go with for a number of years, almost since Ladisi, the acquisition of Peterson. And it was about two years ago that we kind of thought 160th anniversary is coming up.
Probably should think about that. Yeah.
We should sit on this idea. And then last year, Josh was over in May of 2024, and he said, "Okay, the 106," and that's literally where we started from. Like within a week, we had Giacomo sizing the briar blocks for the bowls so that we could get sizing, because these bowls are quite meaty.
Sure. Yeah.
So they need big blocks to be able to turn them from. So that had to start as early as last May. Once we got those kind of started, then Giacomo had to work really hard on developing a stem profile that would lend itself to this muscular aesthetic.
All right, now we're going to talk to Giacomo Penzo, the pipe specialist at Captain Peterson. Giacomo, thank you so much for talking with me.
Thank you, it's a pleasure.
So when I was chatting with Glen earlier, he mentioned that, you know, one thing that really stood out to him with the work that you did on the 160th anniversary was the stems. Obviously, like recreating that V stem with all the lines and the abbreviation, like that had to be challenging. Like, can you speak more to that for us?
Yeah, so the project was very important, so we decided to make everything really, really good. Like every time, obviously.
That's but just what
this
you
time,
do.
Yeah, we try to do every time something special, you know. So we decided to design a proper stem for these two pipes. We wanted to replicate for sure the style of the stem that you can see in the old catalog from 1906. It's been a challenge because it's not usual to make a new stem. We have so many Phillips stems in our range, but no one of them fit perfectly as we wanted for these pipes, you know. So I start to make some drawing and studying the proportion, the dimension, and then we made the mold for the stems. It's been something new for us, so it's been a very nice, interesting challenge. We decided to improve a little bit the shape of the stem, making a little bit more stout to have a nice chubby shape. I think the result is very cool.
Oh my God, yeah, 100%. Yeah, and you know, as you said, I think the results definitely speak for themselves. I mean, it has to be so challenging to create a brand new stem that carries the lines of that specific pipe without disrupting anything, or you know, that's just so true to form.
Yeah, we wanted to maintain the line, the shape, the proportion, but also the comfort of sure. So we did our best in every step of the process to design these pipes.
And even on the internals, you know, like this is a vulcanite P-lip stem. And so it has the graduated bore that was part of Charles Peterson's signature patents. It has the P-lip bit, which is also part of Charles Peterson patents. So not only is it a true to form shape and stem that you would find in the 1906 catalog, it also features some of the innovations and engineering improvements that Charles Peterson set out, you know, just a couple of years prior to that catalog. So aside from the stems, which we've talked about, were there any other unique challenges in reviving this historic Pat B shape?
Yeah, a few challenges. We didn't have any physical samples to use as a reference, you know, to realize our new sample and prototypes to start the production. So I studied very well the catalog from 1906 with the patent shapes. I tried to get as best as possible the dimension, the proportion. I make a draw. From the draw, I make a sample by the block of briar. When I realized the samples for both shapes, we fixed the last few details. Then we make the final prototypes for the production.
That's incredible. So, you know, working from a flat 2D representation of a picture from 100 years ago, you were able to make this three-dimensional object that's functional and true to form. Like, that's incredible. So obviously, you know, these pipes commemorate 160 years of Peterson. So with that, you know, like, is there anything that you particularly want Peak Geeks to know, or anything you want to say to Peak Geeks about this release?
I don't have much to say really about this release that we haven't already spoken about, but I think we want to thank all the Peterson geeks. That's the big thing. Like, without them, we don't have this history. And that's going to lead us into a new history as well. We wouldn't have this storied history without the input of you guys, and we are all truly grateful for that.
Super grateful. So yeah, I guess just in summary, like, really special thank you to the Peterson team and to all of you Peak Geeks out there who support the brand and help carry that tradition across 160 years. Very grateful that here at Smoking Pipes we've been able to be a part of that tradition, and we are looking forward to the next 160 years. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time.